It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. It's a Friday, so we got DB joining the show as well. I'm back, which means everybody got the intro in its full with the voiceover from Brandon Ross side. So this is good things all around. Feel good Friday. How we doing, fellas?
I'm doing well, man. I'm finally back in Louisville.
Are you really though? Because before we started recording, you said you got like 5 hours of sleep, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's about as good as it's going to be. I mean, hey, I'm doing well. We got football. Was it tomorrow? Less than 24 hours. So I'm excited about that. I'm also headed to Disney World here in about like 36 hours. So I mean, I'm off work next week. It could be a lot worse.
Okay.
It could be a lot worse. So
Derrick was in Chicago for work, and last night I was wondering at some point if you were the special guest speaker at the DNC that everyone was talking about. It's like DB is going to get out there and break down some film for everyone.
Yeah. No, I tried to I tried to stay clear away from like where all that stuff was going on, just because there was so much like traffic and everything. Like you just pulled it up on like Google Maps, and like so many places just shut down. But luckily I didn't have to go like too close to that. But yeah, it was a good time. Chicago food, for all of you listeners, Yenzers, whatever. I'm sure that you guys have probably had it before, but Chicago food gets my seal of approval. It was pretty fantastic.
Did you have any
really
pizza?
Well for 3 days. I did have pizza. I even tried Chicago style pizza, and I'm not really a Chicago style pizza guy, but It was good. It's good.
Okay. You mentioned that, and I just had to throw him under the bus for this because he was on the podcast yesterday. So I appreciate Nick Faribaugh filling in on the pod yesterday. But he sent me a text, including the name Brandon Ayuk, regarding a joke that he wanted to make about somebody being a guest speaker at the DNC. And the only thing that I saw was OMG Brandon Ayuk. So I thought something went down then. Because I figured something would when I wasn't like immediate. Like I was at the Washington Wild Things game, which by the way, shout out to them hooking up, threw out a first pitch, was in a suite last night. Great experience, very fun, very cool. So shout out to the Washington Wild Things for that. That's why I wasn't on the pod yesterday. But Nick throws this text my way, and I'm thinking something happened, finally went down with Brandon Ayuk. I should have known that was nothing's gonna happen there. Like it's gonna be like the day before the season starts before we know what's going on with him. But shout out to Nick Faribaugh for filling in on the podcast yesterday. Anyways, you know what? We normally end with a question. I think we're going to start with a question today. That way we can go from the point that we get done with that to the rest of this, kind of previewing this preseason finale tomorrow between the Steelers and the Lions. So Thomas Brocious comes, which, by the way, name mentioned very often on this podcast. I think he probably still does currently hold the record for the most ballage awards on his mantle. He says, analytics chess match thought. Is this why Tomlin has had linebackers covering wide receivers over the years? Football knowledge people all act like Tomlin's hands were tied, and I don't understand what happens. And I don't understand what happens to tying his hands. Could you explain what is happening to get a wide receiver on a linebacker? How do they get that matchup?
Well, there's a couple ways you can make that happen if you're the offense, and there's a couple of like traits that Mike Tomlin has that I think I would say make him a little bit more susceptible to that than other people. But really, it can happen to almost anybody if you have enough interchangeable parts. You know, like one of the reasons the 49ers do the things they do with like George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel is they kind of use them as interchangeable pieces in their offense. They run the same play with those guys in different spots. And, you know, a lot of defenses are designed for players types to cover positions. You have linebackers and strong safeties to cover running backs and tight ends. And so you see this formation on tape, and then you see George Kittle there, and you say, okay, I'm going to put my linebacker there. You know, we got a coverage linebacker, think he can handle him. We got a deep safety over the top if he runs deep. Now, all of a sudden, the 49ers are going to run the same play, but they're going to put Deebo Samuel there instead, and you're not prepared to cover it. That happens. That's one of the things that the Shanahan tree is sort of known for. But I think in general, the Steelers, when they go out against like 12 personnel, especially, like they want to keep their base defense on the field. They don't want to go in a sub package against 12 personnel because that's a really powerful running operation. The Cleveland Browns have run 12 personnel a whole lot over the last few years. If you remember that playoff game in Pittsburgh after the 2020 season, they ran a lot of 12 personnel and got Jarvis Landry. It was like lined up against Rob Spillane a bunch And it's because the Steelers just don't want to give up a personnel advantage. But, like, you can have 12 personnel and you say, okay, right, base versus 12 should be fair, but it's all about the players and where you line them up and how you put them. If you're an offense that's willing to do things like put your tight ends out on the boundary and then line your wide receivers in the slot inside of them, then you're going to have either you have to have really, really good coverage linebackers, or you're going to have a linebacker on a wide receiver. It's kind of an inevitable part of the game at some points.
Yeah, this is a very good question, by the way. I think Alan really hit the nail on the head on a lot of good things. I mean, I always think, to me, like when I'm trying to figure out, ways to get those advantageous matchups, like there's a lot of things you can do. I think empty is always like one of the best ways to do this in terms of like getting your playmakers matched up on linebackers. A lot of times, like what teams will do, they'll go empty like 3x2, but so on the weak side, the 2 receiver side, if you put like your best player there, like I call that like the playmaker spot, because the nickel in almost every defense goes to the strong side of the offensive formation. Like you'll pretty much always get a linebacker at safety over there. So that's always a good matchup. A lot of teams will run like choice routes or option routes with that guy because they're usually going to be one-on-one, and with empty, those guys are typically spread out. Something the Steelers did last week, if you want a good example, they went empty. They actually went 3x2, but they had Pickens and the other 2 receivers out of 11 personnel to the right side of the formation. They had Pickens. They were running a play that the Patriots used to run. It's called Hoswa Juke. Some people call it like Hoswa option, whatever. But the nickel was over the number 2 player. The linebacker was over Pickens, and Pickens won over the middle, and Russ didn't throw him the ball. And he did the classic. I call it the AB because I used to see AB do it when I used to go to Steelers games, like almost after every play he didn't get the ball, where he would just like put the palms up and he's like, I'm wide open. Why are you not throwing me the ball? So yeah, I mean, those are some good examples, but Alan hit the nail on the head. It really comes down to formations. A lot of teams now in the NFL are matching 12 personnel with nickel. So to kind of get away from some of those less than advantageous situations, but really just depends. Like I always think, like if you're getting base personnel on defense, like going to like twins formations, you can put your best player in the slot. Usually you'll get a safety or a linebacker floated out, detached from the formation. So there's a lot of ways to do it. Motion's another good one to get those matchups, but it's, some of it's, just the offense knowing what it's doing. It's all about tendencies and studying your opponent. So
yeah, anytime you can motion, especially if you're motioning into an overload, like motion into trips, you're going to make the defense change on the fly. And then if you make that inside guy, like if you're motioning into trips, the number 3 on that side, the inside of the 3 receivers, he's almost always going to get a linebacker or a strong safety. That's one of the reasons why the Steelers have implemented this heavy nickel package. This heavy nickel package at the 3 safeties is basically what the Steelers designed to combat this very problem. They want to be able to be able to attack 12 personnel without giving up a run defense while doing it. And that's why they want this heavy nickel package, so that they can use an extra safety to cover a tight end, bring a Deshaun Elliott down to the box, who's still a very good run defender, and not have, 175-pound nickel corner in there trying to tackle Nick Chubb. That doesn't work. And so I think that's why they wanted to go to that, to help prevent this problem. I've seen that George Pickens against Art's done that all training camp. I was actually looking through some of my notes from training camp, and I got George Pickens scoring over Patrick Queen. I got George Pickens scoring over Landon Roberts. I had George Pickens with like a huge play when somehow Tyler Matakevich got lined up on him. Like if you have a good idea what kind of defense you might get, it is really not that hard to scheme up your wide receiver against a linebacker.
I was just say too, what I thought was interesting, Alan, when you were first answering that in the example that you used about San Francisco, was I feel like you can tie that back to the conversation we had a few days ago about analytics, and a lot of it being just knowing your own personnel. And because when you have an offense like San Francisco, where those guys are interchangeable and even to a degree positionless, with that, what advantage you have with the playmakers that they have on their side of the ball.
Yeah, I don't really think any of that's analytics. It's just football. It's just strategy. It's not, there's no like advanced math involved in this stuff for the most part. Maybe in terms of tendencies, like trying to guess what kind of defense you're going to get so that you can do that. Like, if you're going to get man, you have a pretty good suspicion that in this circumstance, third and medium, these guys call man, 85% of the time, something like that. Then yeah, you can feel a little bit more confident that you're dialing up the right play call. But that's really about it. I mean, mostly this is just the sort of classic football chess match of I'm going to try to do this, you're going to try to do this to counter it, then I'm going to have to come up with something else to try to counter that kind of offense defense back and forth.
I would say the tendencies with man too. You should also, you mentioned you brought up motion earlier, run motion that gives you a tell pre-snap as well, right there. So it's just I just enjoy the.
Sometimes you can fake that too. There's teams out there that'll dummy the obvious pre-snap ident motion where they just won't move and then they'll react after the snap and try to catch up. Like teams fight back against that too. It's all give and take.
I think too, like it just a lot of that it does go back to like just like knowing your opponent, like knowing what kind of checks they got. We talked a lot about like trips, but most teams will carry like 1 to 2 like trips checks. So anytime you're in like a trips formation, especially on like passing downs, they'll have different checks that they can check to. And I mean, that stuff's all like signals. I mean, the Steelers will switch up their signals from time to time, but like they carry a lot of stuff over game to game, week to week. So like for me, someone that's like watching the all 22 and like I know NFL teams have, they have a dozen plus people that are like cutting all the film up for the players and everything. So like that stuff's all it's not, I don't want to say it's common knowledge, but it's all stuff that you'll pick up over the, the course of a season. And then, that's what makes the Niners, I feel like so difficult to defend is like, they have receivers that can catch like or run the ball like running backs like Debo. They've got a back that can catch the ball like a receiver like McCaffrey, and then Kittle kind of is like one of the rare kind of do it all tight ends where he's like he's a willing blocker, he's a capable blocker, but he's also like good enough to where you can split him out wide or even on like the backside of formations that he can go win like one-on-one against like safety. So I think like anytime you have a lot of good players on offense, like it makes you more diverse. Now, the Steelers are going to be in a little bit different spot. We'll probably talk about that a lot here in the next couple of months because I have some concerns about some of the things I've seen offensively that have popped up on film through 2 weeks. So we can talk about those.
Well, there you go. Great segue because a lot of alarm bells are going off for a lot of people as we enter the Steelers preseason finale against the Detroit Lions here. We do this every week on the last episode of the week where we kind of just talk about who and what we want to see in this upcoming game. So is it, Derek, I mean, based off what you just said right there, is it just more from the offense, that general of a statement that you need to see in this preseason finale?
I mean, yes. Here's what I was sitting in my hotel room. My sleep schedule has been even more jacked up than normal. It was like 2 a.m. 2 nights ago. I'm just like sitting in my hotel room, like watching the game over. And I think my general takeaway is like every single like high level concern that I have had, or like I feel like a lot of people have had about this offense has really like came to fruition over the first 2 preseason games. Like I just think about like all the things that people were worried about headed into the preseason, I think has like kind of like reared its ugly head in some capacity. Like the fit between the play caller and the quarterbacks. Like I'm just going to be completely honest, man. There's a lot of open guys on film last week. I mean, it was pretty rough. Like there was guys running wide open over the middle of the field consistently, and they just couldn't get the ball to them. And I think that's one of the concerns a lot of people had was, Russ, Justin, not guys that typically have targeted the middle of the field at a high percentage. And I think Arthur Smith's offense, like, has guys in that vicinity more than his predecessor did, to say the least. And like, that's a concern for me, just the general consistency of the quarterback position, like seeing things, knowing where their eyes need to be. And then just like the youth of the offensive line, like granted, we haven't really been able to see like Fautanu, but like we all talked about, we needed to see Broderick Jones take another step forward. Unfortunately, like the brace and his struggles through the preseason have been a thing. And I think it's just going to take a little bit for this offensive line to kind of catch up to maybe the level of investment that they've placed in it. And then like the other thing is like just the receivers. Like I've yet to be like really impressed with anyone other than Pickens in terms of like, okay, we need this dude to get open. They were in a lot of like obvious passing situations last week, a lot of too high. So it's not like really, one-on-one opportunities. But at the same time, like when they were given those one-on-one opportunities, like guys weren't winning unless it was like zone coverage and like they were getting schemed open. And like those are just concerns that I have. And just through 2 weeks, it's like everything that we were kind of worried about, I feel like is kind of shown up in some ways. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the case when the regular season comes, but I would like to see some signs of life offensively as we head into the finale.
Alan, do you have anything to say regarding that? Not necessarily. I mean, we're going to talk about what you want to see and need to see in this game too, but just Derrick's thought there.
I'll be honest, I don't really know. I think I just need to see the offense finish a drive. I think that's something I would like to see. I don't really think I'm gonna like learn a whole bunch that I don't know already by what happens in one more preseason game. Like Derrick said, like I think I have a pretty good sense of what this offense is going to be. I don't think they're dynamic. I think they have a young offensive line that's going to be inconsistent. I do think they can run the ball. I'm not sure they're going to be able to throw the ball very well. As long as they don't turn it over, which is the one thing they haven't done, I think their defense will be able to keep them in games. But like anybody that was expecting this offense to come out here and look great, I think was just not like paying attention. I knew they were going to struggle early in the year. Like there's too much new. There's not enough talent. Like that's a bad combination.
Let me ask you both, obviously, the question that's on everybody's mind right now. I know my answer to this, but I think I know yours as well. Is there anything that can happen in this game that would change the quarterback depth chart? Not injury related.
Yeah, I'll let Alan go on this one first. I know what he's going to say, so I'm going to let him go.
I think it's actually really hard for me to envision something that could happen. Here's the thing, okay? If Russell Wilson goes out there and doesn't play very well, I think he's going to play for a while. Like, I think it's going to be the same kind of thing that we saw last week, where he hasn't had that many reps. So, like, if he goes out there and it's like 2 scoring drives, probably sit him down, and he's a starting quarterback, and it doesn't matter what happens after that. If he goes out there and doesn't play very well, I expect him to get a lot of playing time, and then you're going to kind of have to discount anything that Justin Fields does after that because the Detroit starting defense is probably going to be long gone. I don't know. I guess it's possible, but I'm having a hard time seeing how we get to a place where something from this game really drastically changes my mind. Unless Detroit plays their starters the whole first half, which I'd be kind of surprised if they do.
Yeah. I'm honestly impressed, Alan. I didn't think you were really going to entertain that question in a serious manner. I thought you were just going to shoot Smitty down.
Well, I mean, look, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't think there's an opportunity. Like, it's not, I don't see how it happens that right now something's going to change. I don't know. I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. 2 things. One, and maybe this is just me being paranoid. I don't know. I am concerned about Russ's mobility. Just full stop. I tweeted this out like after I went through the All-22 the first time. Like, I was like, the play calling looks quite a bit different. Like, not just like the quarterback run stuff, them doing like the RPOs and stuff like that with Fields. Like, just the play calling. Like, they didn't call any boots for Russ. And like that's a big part of the system. That's a big part of like what makes Russ. Like, he can throw on the move. Like, you want to get him out of the pocket, change the launch point. You need to do that because he's 5'11". And like some of the things that he does well, like really come off of those things. And then also like, the pass protection was what it was. I mean, Broderick was torpedoing drives by himself. But having said that, like Russ's second reaction ability, his ability to scramble, make plays outside the pocket, make guys miss in the pocket, like that's a big part of his game. And if he can't do those things, just bluntly, I don't see how you can start it because like I just don't particularly think that he offers you enough at the quarterback spot without that element of his game to put him back there, especially with the offensive line being what it's been. We'll see what Broderick looks like come week 1. If he's healthy, is he even in the lineup? I don't know. I really don't know. Do I have permission to spoil a potential article in the morning, like spoil my own content?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'm just going to say it. Like, I think that this is this summer, and this is something that I've wrote like 2.5 paragraphs on before I guess hopefully get this out in the morning. I think this summer has been like a really big missed opportunity for Justin Fields, to be honest with you. Like, I was really underwhelmed with his tape last week. The success rate numbers, they look pretty solid. I don't know what the box score numbers look like, whatever, but I just think about this, like, he was honestly like given a gift, like Russ's calf keeping him out all of training camp. And it seems like that was a legitimate thing just based on like how Russ looked last week. He was given a gift to like really take this job. Like, I know that we all kind of anticipated it was going to be Russ to open the season. I know I heard you guys talk about this on a pod like last week or something. You guys admitted that like this isn't starting at like a 1-to-1 competition. That's not how this was. Like, Justin was going to need to be significantly better. But like Russ, that injury gave him every opportunity to do that. Like, he's gotten the lion's share of the snaps throughout training camp. He got to run with the starters. He got to play, 2.5 quarters last week in the preseason game. I mean, the opportunities have been there. And like, for me, I didn't necessarily need him to light the world on fire, but like, there's nothing that I've seen through 2 games that looks any different than it did in Chicago. And it actually looks worse in some capacity in the pocket, because you just look at the numbers, man. Like, Russ and Justin, they have similar like strengths and weaknesses. Justin has the added mobility factor with his age and his rushing ability and things like that. But like, you look at Justin's numbers in the preseason, he's holding the ball for 4 seconds, dog. Like, this is the NFL. You like this offensive line, regardless of what stage it's in, you just can't do that. Like, you cannot hold the ball for 4 seconds. Like, to me, he looks like a player who is not comfortable whatsoever in this system. And when you're going up against like preseason defenses where you're getting a lot of spot dropping, you're not getting any disguises on defense, you rarely get blitzed. It's concerning to me when a quarterback entering year 4 that I think is personally talented and someone that I actually wanted to win the job. It's concerning to me, like the stuff that's on film. That just is what it is. So I think it's a massive missed opportunity for Justin. But to answer your question, Smitty, I don't think that there's really anything that could happen. Unless Russ is not healthy enough, then I think they should start Justin.
That's why I wanted to include the caveat of outside of injury playing a role.
I think it's Russ's job. I really do.
That's one of the things that's really been bizarre to me about the sort of like national media coming and saying, oh, they got to play Justin Fields. I'm like, he's not even playing very well. I don't understand. Like, I thought that we were going to get this like overreaction to like Justin Fields like in mop-up duty against somebody's third team, like going off for like 350 and 3 touchdowns. And then like we were really going to have a conversation about like, oh, like how much do these preseason snaps matter? And like, are you really gonna like we used to talk about Mason Rudolph when he'd come in late in the game and like light the world on fire, and then people would have to be like, no, like he's a 7th-year guy playing against somebody who's going to be bagging groceries next week. Like, you can't take this as a 1-for-1 to the starters. Fields didn't even do that. He didn't even dominate backups. Like, he's not been very good, even compared to his own standard, let alone, I think, and hope for improvement.
And like Justin, to me, like the most like frustrating part is like, yeah, there's a little bit of like hopium involved in terms of like, okay, I want Justin to play faster in the pocket. I want him to be more decisive. I want him to throw with anticipation. Yeah, like you can say all of those things from a fan perspective, from an analytical perspective, but those things weren't things that were necessarily on tape in Chicago. They just weren't. Like, you want to see him in a different environment, see him with a new coaching staff, a new offensive infrastructure to see if those things improve. And I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying they haven't yet. And I think that that's a missed opportunity considering the majority of snaps that he's gotten and the amount of like reps that we've got to see him in. And it's disappointing to me because like I look at the things that he does at a really, really high level. Hasn't even done that. Like, if you look at him last week, like there were plenty of times where he looked indecisive on when to run. Like, you look at the first play of the game, they ran a dagger concept. In my opinion, the ball needs to be thrown. Like, it needs to be thrown second window in between the numbers, because I think that throw is open. Some people may disagree with me, but even then, it's like if you're not comfortable with the play calls or you're not comfortable with a certain concept or going 1 to 2 to 3, pull the ball down and run. You run a 4.4. You're 6'3", like 230, dude.
I don't
like,
know how he ever gets
just
sacked.
Use your athleticism.
He's faster than everybody on the field, basically. Like, he takes so many sacks, and it's like the pocket management and the decisiveness, I think, is the part that really gets me. Like, and it's not like you said, it's not better. It's not like a different scheme, and we're seeing a new Justin Fields. In fact,
yeah,
I mean, in many ways, it's worse.
Yeah, I don't want to say that it's like, I know that synopsis is going to sound like super negative, but I still think that Justin's going to get the chance to play this year, just because, like, Russ being his age, I don't know what they're going to get from Russ this year in general. I'm still cautiously optimistic that one of these guys is going to provide them like adequate starting quarterback play. Maybe that's a little more than optimistic, but I don't know. This feels like a huge missed opportunity to me personally. I don't know.
Yeah, there was an article by Mike Florio today that like suggested the Steelers are hoping Russell Wilson can like bring back the magic or something like that. And I was like, no, I think they're hoping that he can do like at least 90% of what he did last year, and they're going to take that away running, because so far from what I've seen, that's like their best shot. Like that to me is like the upper level of my hopes for the quarterback play for this team for this season, is that like Russ is just not a lot worse than he was last year.
Derek, what I thought was interesting there is you transitioned to talking about that by talking about the offensive line and Broderick Jones. As you were saying that, I was wondering if you were going a different direction. I was going to say, we asked him the wrong question about the depth chart here. Could it be Broderick Jones on the bench week 1 in Atlanta
100%.
if Troy Fautanu is ready to return?
Dude, offensive line is one of those spots where, like, if you have a black hole on the offensive line and defensive teams know it and coordinators know it, they will do every single thing to attack that. Like, I think for me, it's like Broderick's still the technical mess, but right now he doesn't look like he's physically able to overcome some of his some technique flaws that we've seen him get away with because he's a freak athlete. I think the injury, it looks like a really big deal to me. He doesn't look like he has any pop in his hands in the run game. His hand placement is still atrocious in pass protection. But yeah, I mean, like last week, like during the game, I don't know about you guys, but like there was a point where I was like, all right, you got to put someone else in there at right tackle. Like we're not getting a good look at Russell Wilson. We're not getting a good look at this offense because he's getting beat on every single play. I mean, no offense to like Greg Rousseau. Like I think Greg Rousseau is like a solid player in the NFL. Like I think that he's probably getting better. But when your first round pick that you traded up for a year ago is getting worked like that, like not just a couple times, but like every single play, it's concerning. And I think like if Fautanu's healthy, my vision for coming into the season, I would have liked to have seen like one of those guys at left tackle, the other at right tackle. But if Fautanu's healthy and Broderick's not, and he's still wearing the brace, it doesn't have like full range of mobility there and doesn't have any power, like I feel like you have to keep more at left tackle. You got to play Fautanu at right. And you just hope that Broderick gets healthy eventually. And unless like, tomorrow he could go out there and look completely fine and I could change my mind on that. But I think there's absolutely a scenario where he's on the bench week 1.
I'm also like, how healthy is Troy Fautanu? Hasn't practiced yet.
Yeah, we don't even know.
2 weeks to the game. Like,
sure.
It's a rookie who hasn't practiced in 2 weeks now. Like, I don't know how confident I am in either. Dylan Cook's in a walking boot. I don't know that they have a better option besides playing Broderick Jones, even if he doesn't play better.
It might be Smitty. It might be Spencer Anderson. Spencer Anderson went to right tackle during the preseason game.
Lineman that has looked the best all preseason. I said that talking to Nick yesterday. Yeah, absolutely.
Even the tackle he has, Alan?
I mean, not great, but
okay. Yeah, I mean, the Broderick stuff has not been great, and I think that there was some optimism. Alan, I don't know where you are now with that, but I think that he is going to have that brace
for a while. Yeah, it's not like when I talked to him when he first got on, it was like I got to learn to deal with it. Like it's not going away.
Yeah, I think that there was hope initially, at least from my side, and some people that I talked to, that it was like more of a precaution thing. He would ditch it once the regular season, like they wanted to get him to the regular season with it, and then he would ditch it. I don't think that's going to be the case based off what it is.
Yeah, I mean that's like alarm bells should be going off like right now for everybody. And I'm not trying to like push the panic button, but like, dude, like the offensive line, like Alan mentioned it earlier, they're not talented enough to go out there and like blow the doors off people. Like this is not a team that's going to go out and score 27, 28 points a game. Like they're going to have to play really good defense. They're going to have to play a very specific brand of football on offense. That specific brand of football really comes from being able to win in the trenches. They need Broderick Jones to be a legitimately like above average at the very least run blocker and a serviceable, like not catastrophe in pass protection. And if he can't do that because of injury or because they've got to play somebody else or whatever, like that does change the outlook for what this offense is probably going to look like in the fall. It just does. So, I mean, even for like Broderick's flaws, like he's always been like an incredible athlete, like just in terms of like his length, his speed, his athleticism, his power, all those things. And he's been able to overcome some of the technical stuff. But if he doesn't have that to him, I mean, it's a significant worry for me. So
Derek, Hotley talked about obviously if Broderick should be on the right side or left side. Now that he has this injury on that right arm, and would you trust him playing on the left side anyway?
Don't care.
But I'm saying as the blindside blocker, where the worst way to lose for anybody, regardless of where you're at, is obviously fast inside.
Yeah, 100%.
You would probably lean towards him playing on the right side, so that at least wouldn't be the bad arm.
But that's the thing too. Like, and this is what I mean. You understand this. Alan understands this. I think a lot of people probably that listen to this pod probably understand this too, just because it's like, I feel like
we got Thomas Brocious,
yeah. But like Broderick was losing inside last year with a healthy arm. So it's like Broderick wasn't very good in pass protection as a rookie. And that's okay because most rookie tackles, they suck. It just is what it is. It's a really difficult position to play. And then now Broderick's playing at less than 100%. It doesn't matter if he plays right or left. I think like people are I think that talking point has been so overblown. Now I think that we can all three agree. Like, would we have preferred, like if we're on the coaching staff, Broderick would have been playing left tackle, right? Like, or Fautanu, somebody.
I don't know. Yeah, like whatever. Just pick one. That's where I'm with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same.
Right.
I'm the exact same way. I would have probably honestly played Fautanu at left tackle, but it doesn't matter. Like, if us three were on the coaching staff, we'd have played one of those two guys at one spot, the other at the other, and that would have been done. We'd have said, this is what it is. It's going to be like that. I don't love the plan for Brerk Jones in general. It doesn't make any sense to me. I've wrote about that for Steelers now, but like at the same time, him going to left tackle tomorrow against the Lions isn't going to make him magically better at pass protection. All you got to do, go watch Broderick pass set. Like, not just like this preseason, but like last year, he's still doing the same things he was doing in Georgia. He's still ducking his head. He's still like catching guys, like bear hugging guys. Look at his hand placement. He's still two-hand striking. Like, it's all the same stuff that was on his film 2 years ago. It's just now he's not healthy, one. And then two, like, it's a little bit different going up against like NFL edge rushers as opposed to SEC level edge rushers. And like, there's guys that are fast enough, that are strong enough, that can sequence moves together enough to kind of take advantage of some of that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's a disappointing thing. I think that there's a lot of frustrating elements from the teams playing with him, from his lack of development on his own side, and then just the injury luck. It sucks. It sucks on a lot of different fronts.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, because we got to get out of here, I want each of you to give me, because I'm also a fan, but also the people watching and listening to this podcast, 3 players to watch tomorrow.
3.
Yes, 3.
Jonathan Ward, I think he has a chance to earn a role if he can show that he's healthy. I thought he's the running back with the most burst. Des Fitzpatrick, if he's still the number 1 gunner, I think you got to put him on the team, although I don't think he's been great. And I think guys like Ryan Watts, Darius Rush, Beanie Bishop are also going to get a shot there. And Mark Robinson, I think he's on the team, but I think he's got to keep playing well to stay there.
Man, Alan took all of my guys. Yeah, I mean, it's a good shout on Fitzpatrick. I think I don't think Fitzpatrick's like an overwhelmingly like great receiver by any means, but I do think he's blocked pretty tough in the preseason, so that kind of gives him a little bit of an edge in my book. I think we need to have a small conversation about Darius Rush. Like, why is Darius Rush not covering punts? I'm just really confused. Like, I went to go back and watch like some of the special team snaps when I was awake in my hotel room at 2 a.m. He's not covering punts. I mean, that's what he did at South Carolina. He ran a 4.36 40. He's like your 5th or 6th cornerback.
4th, maybe.
I mean, but like if he's going to be on this roster, and I'm
not sure that he is.
I'm not sure that he is either.
You're saying he might be the 4th cornerback. I don't think he is if he's not covering punts. He might not be on the roster.
But that's what I'm saying. Why? Like, what's the deal with that?
Who is if it's not him?
Patrick Peterson.
Who's the like? I'm like the tea leaves do not look good for Darius Rush, but I think you have to have 4 outside corners, and I don't know where the other one comes from.
Yeah,
I just don't. I don't. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean,
also not currently on the roster. Maybe drop it in the same bucket as receiver 5.
That's probably a good shout. I mean, Fitzpatrick's a good shout. I still think that wide receiver's 5 spot at the bare minimum needs to come from outside the organization. You can keep the top 4 if they don't want to make a trade for a wide receiver 2 or for a playmaker, which I 100% still am very much of the belief that they should. But if they don't, they should at least go out there and get kind of a different archetype of player than they have already on the roster. I just feel like a guy like Scotty Miller is just too repetitive for the guys that they already have. So Darius Rush would be one for me personally. I am still really interested in like the edge 4 spot. Kyron Johnson's a guy that's really popped for me on tape. I think the traits, like his get off has been impressive, the bend around the edge, the flexibility in his lower body. I think that all that's been, he hasn't been a complete disaster against the run either, even though I do think that there are probably some limitations to his game with that. But so Kyron Johnson would probably be another one.
Jeremiah Moon's banged up. He was in a walking boot yesterday. So
so he's got the edge 4 spot.
Kyron Johnson's kind of got that by default, I think. At this point.
Sounds good. I'm good with that because I think he's a fun player. And then you already said Jonathan Ward, who's been a guy who I've really enjoyed watching. I'm excited to see him tomorrow. But I'll say I think they need to put Najee Harris in bubble wrap just in case that Jaylen Warren isn't back
100%.
for the first week or two. So I probably wouldn't give Najee very many carries, if any, tomorrow. My preference would be 0. I'm sure they'll probably give him like a drive. I wouldn't hate seeing Cordero Patterson just like a little bit more. I mean, he hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of weird to say like we need to see something from a 33 or 34-year-old running back, but I would also like to get him on kick returns. He's arguably the greatest kick returner of all time. So I'm not here to doubt Cordero Patterson on kick returns, but this is a very different type of return than the one he's used to. So I would kind of like to do that. No offense to Plumlee. He seems like a great dude. I admire the grit, the do-it-all mentality that he's shown. We're wasting time. Like, I don't see the purpose in having a guy that's 100% has no chance to be on the roster back there returning kicks in the final preseason game. I would prefer to, get somebody else a look, maybe somebody that you may have to use in the regular season. So I'll say Patterson, Kyron Johnson, and then Darius Rush.
There you go. That's it. DB, tell the people where they find you.
At Steelers_DB, Twitter, YouTube, all my written work at SteelersNow.com.
There you go. Short and sweet. Alan, tell the people where they find you.
At Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now site's account, SteelersNow.com. That's where the words are. Read them so I can get paid. New feature dropped today for SN Plus subscribers. We're calling it Southside Scoop. It's like a big column with all kinds of cool little tidbits in there. I think it's going to be the best thing we got going. No offense to DB stuff, which is awesome. I'm not just saying. I think it's pretty good.
Wait, Alan, what's SN Plus?
Huh?
I said, wait, Alan, what's SN Plus?
Steelers Now Plus, where you subscribe to the to get your subscription. I don't know. Where are you?
I was setting you up on a tee to tell people what SN Plus was to subscribe to it.
Yeah, it's our.
I mean, they missed out getting it for $10, but
they did, but it's our. They get all the best stuff from me and Derek and the rest of the Steelers Now team, and it's $4.59 a month, so it's still not very expensive. And I'll give you a sticker if you want one, because you missed as a consolation gift for missing out on our great sale. But seriously, go check out the new thing. I think you're going to really like it.
Yep. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell here. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything that we talked about, who you want to see or what you need to see in this game. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you were listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find Steelers Afternoon Drive there, along with on TikTok at Steelers Afternoon Drive. And you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders, for Derrick Bell, and myself, thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.